Welcome to The Grow Show with me as your host, Joe Camberato. I am an entrepreneur who created my company, National Business Capital, from literally $0 out of my spare bedroom to over $2 billion in business loans secured for entrepreneurs nationwide. Since 2007, I have seen just about every type of business. I provide money and help entrepreneurs access capital to scale fast, but I also know that it's possible for you as you scale to replace yourself, to build systems, processes, and great teams of people that can live on without you so you can actually enjoy your life and your company can still grow. I will not only tell you the peaks and valleys of my story, but I will also bring on world-class entrepreneurs to tell their stories and share their lessons on their growth journeys. Welcome to The Grow Show. All right. Welcome to The Grow Show. Thanks for tuning in today. Got a guest on, Matt Gilbert. I think, obviously my show is all about people growing, making it happen in whatever their business is. So I think I'm excited to have Matt on today because Matt will help you get prepared in exiting your business and doing it the right way to make sure you can extract as much value out of the thing that you've built for probably many years. So I think it'll be great to have Matt on. Matt is the founding partner of Gilbert and Pardue Transaction Advisors. He has more than 31 years of experience as a partner, president, CEO, shareholder of successful middle and lower market businesses, interacting with private equity as a seller and major shareholder in two businesses that were acquired by Fortune 500 companies. And Matt, now helps companies both prepare to exit as well as identify buyers to sell to. So thanks for being on the show today, Matt.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joe. Appreciate you having me. Curious. I need to find out who wrote that. That's pretty good.
I'm sure my team put it together with our buddy Steve. So
yeah.
Well, listen, it's all true, right? And you've obviously made some really amazing things happen in the course of your career, and are doing some great stuff now.
Yeah, it's interesting the trajectory my life has taken. I live in Texas. You're in New York, so we're worlds apart. But I didn't go to college. I came out of high school and started a company.
Wow.
Have done that 4 times, where we founded a company at my kitchen table and grew that business quite nicely and acquired either geographical competitors or maybe strategic vendors and stuff. And all 4 of those companies were eventually sold. 2 of them to public companies and 2 of them to private equity buyers. And then this business that we're in now, we're in our 8th or 9th year, is the 5th business that I've started. The first one and this one are with the same partner, which is kind of unheard of and a big deal. And so it's been a fun ride. Brett and I kind of look at this as a second career. Our first 4 businesses were very blue collar, very manufacturing, pickup trucks, and guys in the field, and working all over the country. And this is a completely different beast. It's advisory work. It's legal and accounting, and very white collar. So it's been a real fun time, and I think I've learned a ton more in this than I have in anything else. Get to apply a bunch of lessons we learned the hard way when we were operators. So
yeah,
it's
I'm sure.
So thanks a lot for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the first business that you started right out of high school?
Yeah, well, I was actually in junior high. Started mowing lawns up and down the street, and by the time I was in high school, I had a bunch of my buddies with pickup trucks, and one guy had a wagon. They were all working for me, and we'd signed up some realtors around town, and we were mowing yards and shoveling snow and fixing fences and cleaning swimming pools and selling firewood. When I was in high school, I just got the bug for being a business person. I had a guy ask me the other day on a different show, have you ever worked for, by the hour? And I was like, yeah, I think it was a sophomore in high school was the last time I worked by the hour. It was a really bad winter and it snowed and it was cold outside. So I took an indoor job washing dishes and making cheese rolls at the Western Sizzlin'.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned about FICA and FUTA, and how $7 or $8, whatever I was making an hour, wasn't going to get me where I wanted to be in life. And those are very formative experiences that I still I think about a lot today. And your clients and my clients they're all business owners, right? They've taken this leap, and they've put the blood tears in, and they're on a journey that not many people can relate to. And I just love relating to people in that community, because I've lived that life too.
I love it. It's actually a great question. It's funny. You made me think, like, when was the last time that I got paid by the hour? And it was probably like ninth grade, maybe, was maybe my last hourly job. And then I worked in a commission-based sales job at like the local, it was in Long Island. I know you're in Texas, but there's, it's called PC Richard & Son, which is, it's like an electronics appliance center. And they're still here. They're all throughout like Long Island and some of the surrounding areas. But I think in like 12th grade, I made 40 grand a year working part-time, but I worked every night, weekend, like I possibly could. I used to get in trouble for working too many hours, and I would run around just out selling guys that were twice my age, working harder than everybody else, and it was just a wild time. But that was it was commission, and then I had a few other commission-based jobs, and then I started my company, which is still a company today, at 25 years old, which is crazy, and scaled it into what it is. But yeah, you really think about that. It's like, wow, it's been a long time since I got paid by the hour.
We're kind of cut from the same cloth. I mean, early on, we figured out we had to go out and hustle, our way through the world, and opportunity is there if you'll go put the effort in, right?
100%.
And so that's who most of our clients are. It's who most of your clients are. They saw an opportunity. They took the leap. They started a business, and it's kind of interesting, because I don't know how much planning you did when you started your business, but most people just kind of take the leap and they react years and years, and they've been reacting for decades, and they grow in that business, but it's kind of unintentional. And then at some point you sit down and you go, wow, we've got something here. Let's get intentional about it. You make it really nice. And then 2-3 decades later, you're 60 years old, and you don't know how to get out of that, or unwind it, or give it to your kids, or sell it to the next guy, or whatever. Because that planning for different stages is just not something that was ever a high priority. And we deal with that all the time. So, but it's interesting. You and I are, I'm 55. I have no idea how old you are. I think you're younger than I am, but
yeah, I'm 41.
We're cut from the same cloth for sure.
No, definitely. And it's funny. Well, you asked me if I do a lot of planning in the beginning. In the beginning, the only planning I did was I tried to plan not to fail.
I have another month.
Yeah, exactly. And now we obviously do planning and have set up all processes, systems, and just continue to improve that stuff. But it is interesting, and I think what you're doing is so important, because we work with companies that typically do $1 million, as low as $1 million a year in revenue, to $100 million in revenue. So it's a wide range, and we obviously help them access capital. But what I see a lot is, especially like in the baby boomer generation, in this newer generation, new way of doing business, there's more talk about scaling, growing, exiting. That's like the cool thing. But in the baby boomer generations, guys, in their 60s, late 50s, 60s, even 70s, like that really wasn't like a thing. Was like to like grow and scale and sell a business, or be like a serial entrepreneur for most people. Not that none of them have done that, but for the most part, they just built a business that really was able to fuel their lifestyle. And then so no one really set it up for sale, and a lot of them just don't think about that, or know like what the multiples are, or what they can extract out of something. And I think there's a lot of times they misvalue what they have. But what's interesting is when I see today too, is that a lot of, and I've been hearing this a lot lately, is a lot of, and just talking about with people that were maybe doing some financing to put some stuff in place in order to get ready to sell. Their kids don't want to take over the businesses, so and there's, and there's like what, $1.5 trillion of baby boomer businesses like that can literally transfer in the coming years. And with a lot of with really like their family doesn't want to take it over, which is just wild to me. What are your thoughts on that? And I'm sure you've got to be in the middle of all this right now.
Yeah, we are actually, and you've got a good head for the game. I mean, you're definitely in there. The next generation. Well, let's go back. The last generation and the generation before that. They selling your business wasn't a thing. You're going to grow your business in your little local community, and you're going to hand it down to your kids or hand it down to your management team or whatever. And then somewhere 15, 20 years ago, private equity just appeared out of nowhere, and that hand it down process that has been going on for 100 years switched, and now we have these financial buyers coming in and rolling up businesses, and you got Walmart putting all the in the 70s and 80s and 90s putting all the mom and pops out of business, and so the world changed, and in today's world, handing that business down to a second or third generation is actually pretty rare. The second, third generation literally don't want it, which it boggles my mind that they want to do something different, and they were raised differently with a different work ethic too. So I find a lot of business owners would come to me, especially older men, will say, man, for years I just thought my son would want to take this business over, and he worked here as a salesman or as an operator or something for a little while, but he didn't really have a passion for it, and I can't trust it to him. It's too big of an asset for our family. So what do I do? And fortunately there's a whole, pathway for people like that to go down. But it's one that they haven't given much thought to. It's also a pathway where, they don't know the landscape. They haven't been there before. And there are professionals in there that take advantage of them all along the way. So there's a lot of, and that's, one of the reasons I love jumping on shows like this is just to educate people that, there is a way to have a great exit if you have built this business, over your career, over your lifetime. But it's pretty rare. Our customer base overlaps. We're kind of 10 million to 100 million in revenue in businesses that we serve nationwide. And statistically, about 20% of those that want to go find a buyer and sell and transact actually complete the deal, and 80% of them fail.
Wow.
And that's a national statistic, and there's reasons for that. The reasons are that you can go to MBA school on the East Coast and the West Coast and learn how to approach business owners and go around the advisory community and buy those businesses at below fair market value. That's something that's being taught actively, how to get these businesses. The last statistic I heard was 38% below market value is an average that these businesses are being bought for. And that's people who aren't accessing good advisors who know there's another way, right? And so part of my mantra is just, don't get fleeced in this, last chapter of your life. You've built a great asset probably, and something you should be proud of. And there is a way to exit well, but very specific processes depending on, what your situation is.
Makes sense. Can everyone sell their business? Like, is every business sellable?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I used to say no, but the truth is there's a buyer for everything out there right now. If you want $10 million for your business and the market thinks it's worth $2 million, you might not.
Far apart.
You have a miss. But if you were willing to take $2 million, it's sellable, right?
Yeah.
We sold a business when we first got started that nobody else would touch. They went to Dallas, Houston, and all over the country, all the way out even to California, looking for an advisor. Nobody would touch it because they had 97% concentration with one customer who was an oil company, with a bad reputation for paying their bills. And you know, we analyzed it, thought there might be an angle there that we could help them. And we ended up finding a buyer for that business that had 97% customer concentration with an oil company who doesn't pay their bills. So yeah, there's a buyer for everything out there, but you've got to make sure that there's alignment in value, right? It's got to be a good deal for both parties. And most of the time when people say my business isn't sellable, what they're really saying is I can't get what I want for it.
I say,
you know,
yeah.
there's businesses out there that are running at a loss, that are sellable, but you know, it's maybe not under the
What
term.
you want. Yeah.
And you know, there's a whole cottage industry, trust sales. There's a startup, you know, and venture capital. I mean, this is really a space where if you find your niche, you know, you'll find a buyer.
Makes sense. And what do you think, like, you know, if someone's thinking about this, what type of planning, you know, you think should go into it? Like if you want to sell, like what's a good timeline or a time frame that you should really kind of start the process to, because you got to get some things prepared before you bring a, you know, company to market.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I'm glad you asked it. There's been just a boom in the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years of people in the accounting world and consultants going and getting to be accredited CFP or certified financial planner or certified exit planner or something like that. And then they go and they help business owners kind of think through the process of getting themselves and their shareholder group ready for an exit, and then turning their attention to the business and getting the business ready for an exit. I will tell you that very few of those folks, in our experience, are good at what they do, and so my comment would be, and in fact, there's a statistic out there that somewhere around 84% of business owners have done no planning for this event in their life.
Yeah.
Right. So we're talking about the majority of people haven't done any planning, and it's a process. So when I meet a business owner who's just starting to ask questions, you know, how do you value this thing? What's the process look like? Who would be a buyer for my company? Whatever. That's a mental journey that they're going through, and they're having to get their head around what life would look like if they were to let go of this business, right? And so a lot of times that person will go through that mental journey for months and months, maybe even a year or two. And then when they flip the switch in their head and they say, I'm ready, one of the things they didn't do is they didn't let the business go through that same journey. Business is an entity. It's got a life of its own. It's got employees and processes and procedures and customers and vendors and files and records and tax returns. And it has to go through the same process. So you've got to go, you know, get things in order at the business while you're getting your own head together. And when those two things come together and they're both kind of ready to transact, you know, then you can enter into a well-designed process. Number one, you're going to understand your objectives for selling the company. Well, I want to achieve this, and I want to achieve that, and I want to achieve this in my sale. And so then we can build a process that'll go achieve those objectives. And most people don't realize this too. I know I'm getting long-winded.
That's all right.
A sale of a business nowadays to customer base that you and I serve is most commonly not a complete sale. So most commonly our clients will sell 70 or 80% of their business, and they'll reinvest that 20 or 30%, and they'll go from being the majority shareholder to a minority shareholder and an advisor or chairman of the board or something like that. And so they'll take a tremendous amount of their equity and their wealth off the table at closing, but then they'll roll some of that forward and say
into the new bigger entity with the bigger, larger group.
And the buyers are doing that because for a couple of reasons. One, the financial buyers, where all of the money is these days in the market, they don't want to operate the business. You're a great operator. They want you to stand there and either train your replacement or build a management team that can take your place. They don't want to step into your shoes, number one. And so you're there to mentor those people who are taking over the day to day. And then number two is, valuation expectations are so high nowadays that if I could take 70 or 80% of my equity off the table at closing and then roll my investment in with the buyer and partner with them to grow the business on their checkbook, on their personal guarantees, on their relationships to another level, and then we exit together a second time, I can really get wealthy. And, and that formula has proven out over and over in the marketplace to be one that works.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And everyone's aligned too to really grow and scale, and they've got someone in there that knows what's going on.
Yep.
And I feel like I think just too what I'm even hearing you're saying, I think just going into these in really what you would do, I think you have to be open-minded. Maybe you had one structure in place, but maybe get an offer for a different type of structure. So going into these things, I think you have to be, open-minded. But I think just starting to think about this, 2 to 3 years before you're really ready to do it, so you can understand like what's out there, what you have to plan for. Maybe there's adjustments that you can do to increase your net profit or EBITDA, and extract more value out of the sale.
Yeah, you're good at this. We have a valuation service where we'll come in at any time and perform a valuation on your business. Most valuations are for shareholder agreements or divorce or IRS defense or wealth planning. None of those are the type of valuation that I'm talking about, and those are expensive. One that I'm talking about is relatively inexpensive, and it's forward-looking through the windshield. Where is this business going? What will that value be to the marketplace? How will respond to this in the marketplace? And so, what I encourage people to do when they're at the front end of the process is let's get a good M&A valuation. And you're going to learn three things really in that valuation. You're going to learn, where do you stand out compared to your peers? Where are you better than everybody else? Right? And where are you really struggling compared to your peers? And where are those value detractors? And then most of the attributes of your business are going to be kind of neutral in the middle. And if you can move some of those neutrals to a positive or move a value detractor to a neutral, then you're moving tangible value on that business. And so if you've got time to have an outsider come in and analyze this and let you look at it and say, hey, if you move these 2 or 3 things, you can get $4 million more when we sell this. Why don't you take 12 months and work on that?
Yeah.
That's really powerful advice. And we do that with a lot of folks. And then when we go to sell them, our statistics aren't, 20% success and 80% failure. In our firm, we're over 95% success because we're preparing those business owners to have a top of the market sale. And oftentimes somebody will come to me and, their partner had a cancer diagnosis, or a while back, a client was introduced to me from his attorney, and his wife had Alzheimer's, and she was getting to where there wasn't much time left where she knew who he was. And he was like, I don't want to go to work anymore. I really want to spend time with my wife. Those guys didn't have the luxury of going through that planning process. But there was an important thing in their life that said, get me out of here. I want to go spend my time with my spouse. And then you're kind of at the market of what your business is worth. But if you have time to work on that thing and prepare it, get it cleaned up and ready to go, you can do very, very well in the process.
That makes sense. And just like anything else that you plan for, right?
Yeah. Happen in the movies, and work out great. But in real life, you want something to work out great. You're going to strategize a plan, and there's a tug of war on how we're going to do this, and what it's going to cost, and who the teammates are. And, I really think it takes a village to help a business owner do this. It's not you and some guy you met often who did it for his company. There's a transaction advisor, an attorney, a tax advisor, an HR consultant, an inventory guy, a equipment appraiser, real estate valuation. I mean, this is a complex world.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you don't know what you don't know, right? So trying to like going into a war with, a knife, like like a pocket knife. Like you should always surround yourself with great, the right advisors, great advisors, a great team, because without that, you're just you don't know, and you're going to get taken advantage of, just like in any other type of deal that you might do. If you go into it without the right information,
Yeah.
how do you really know? You know.
Yeah, I have a real pet peeve. A lot of business owners will. It's expensive, right? When you have attorneys and accountants and transaction advisors and all these people working with you to do something, right?
It's more expensive to not get what you could get, though.
Yeah, definitely not free. And so what happens to a lot of these business owners is they start focusing on the cost, which is how they spent their life, right? Is being
Yeah,
pragmatic with the expenses and growing their business. So they start focusing on the cost instead of on the value. And I'll give you,
correct.
I have a guy who is now a very good friend. But when I met him, he was trying to sell his business. He was working with somebody else. They were really, really focused on the cost of their advisors and trying to hold those things down. And the best offer that he was able to get for that business was a 16 point something million dollars. And his name's Sean. I was like, Sean, what I'd really like to do is encourage you to take your field of vision off of what the cost of this process is and say, where can I get the most value? Right.
Yeah,
And if you need to spend 200,000 more dollars to get the most value, let's look at that. So he turned down the 16 point, whatever, I think $16.8 million offer. And we retooled his team, backed up, took another about 7 or 8 months, ended up selling that business for $23 million.
wow. So spend another 200 grand more.
Yeah. For the two
Yeah,
he was going to lose the difference between 16 and 23. And I find a lot of business owners are that way because they've had to be very frugal minded in growing their businesses and surviving downturns and recessions and all that kind of stuff. But this is kind of a different beast. And so you need to find a professional that you really click with and you connect with and you trust, and somebody who's got a good track record, and you listen to the wisdom, because they do this every day. And
yeah.
a lot of these business owners kind of get in their own way at this stage.
What do you think, just for people watching? I think this kind of helps. Like, what do you think the biggest mistakes are? That you wind up seeing.
Yeah, number one biggest mistake that I wind up seeing is there are, I don't want to name names, but there are very prestigious schools out there in their MBA programs and their business and finance programs. They're teaching their students and alum that there are ways to approach business owners. You're going to email them, you're going to meet them at conferences, you're going to go see them, you're going to call them and build a relationship and try to buy that business before a business owner can surround themselves with a good team. Right. And that's where I said earlier, there's a 38% national average. They're buying businesses 38% below market value. So the day they close, they made a 38% return on their money. Right.
Wow.
That's at Mr. Business Owner's expense. So what happens is they're taught to flatter a business owner, and a business owner gets flattered. It's like, you're calling me, you think my business is valuable, you want to buy me, you have a good name and a reputation, I respect that. And so I get tricked into this process. I'm sharing financials, and I get sucked in. And then as the business owner, I'm frugal, right? I call my attorney and, hey, you and I can negotiate this deal with this guy. He really wants to buy my company. And that is happening all over the country because it's being taught as a process to all the young guys coming out. And so the biggest mistake is, don't get sucked into that process where you don't have control. You have to have control over the process of selling your company, and build your own team and know what you want and run a process that gets you multiple offers so that you can pick and choose the best components and construct a deal that achieves your objectives. And then the other side of that is when you're really hooked in with one buyer and you don't have options, they'll have a tax angle that they need to take to make this transaction work. And normally the tax angle that's great for the buyer is terrible for the seller. And so if you can't negotiate that tax angle, then you might sell your business for $40 million, but your tax bill is going to be 3 times what it should have been. You're not going to pocket what you should have. So, I'm getting passionate, and I always do. But
no, I love it.
Yeah. There's a lot of you only do this one time in your life, and you're at a point in your life where you need to get it right, because you don't want to go start over and have to earn more money later. Don't think that you and your attorney, or you and a couple of people who have done this before in your community can go take on professional buyers and do a good job, because I just watch people make. There was a study, actually, a company in Canada. This was right when COVID hit. The study came out. They called something like 1,100 business owners on the 1-year anniversary after they sold their company. And they said, we got 3 questions. The first question is, do you regret selling your business? More than 75% of them said, yeah, I regret selling my business. Okay, that right there's a huge red flag. Okay, why do you regret selling your business? More than 2/3 of them at that point said, I found out later that I could have got a lot more, and I just didn't understand the right process to run. The other group said that they sold to people who they didn't feel like aligned with them from a value and authenticity and character standpoint, and they felt that the process was disingenuous. So, and you hear private equity kind of has a bad rap, coming in and tearing things up and doing employees wrong and things like that. They earned some of that reputation a while back, but the industry has so many players in it now that there's a great buyer for every company out there. What you got to do is you got to how to go find that buyer and not settle for a lousy buyer. And so you got to build a process to do that. And most people just don't know how to do that.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, and too, if you built something and this is now you're selling, it's the first time you're going through the process. Again, you don't know. Unless you're a serial entrepreneur, you've gone through this a number of times, and and you get it, and you kind of have that pre-established team, and you understand things that others don't. But for the most part, most people never go through it. So how would you really know? And I think the tax planning piece is really important. And, getting that right team together to extract the best value, but also having a tax advisor in there that can, there's so many different, there's things that you can do. Even if you know that you're not going to sell for years out, just setting up, maybe a C Corp over other corps and just different things that you can, get in place to, really, pay the least amount in taxes.
It's just something people don't plan well. And if you can back up and have the luxury of time to spend 3 years going through the planning process, you will put a lot more money in your pocket. No doubt. One of the things that we do when we start working with somebody, they don't really realize this, but we know what's coming, right? They don't know what's coming in the process. So the minute we start working with somebody, we're building files for deal defense, for tax strategy, for all the things that we know are coming on the back end. And I'll give you an example. We're working on a letter of intent right now to sell a really nice business, probably a little over 100 million in value. And they have given us their first due diligence request list. That's a very typical one. It has 463 questions on it. Those 463 questions be answered in detail. And then not only do we give the answer, but then we have to upload documents to support the answer and defend it, right? And that's the first schedule. There will be a legal schedule. There'll be an HR schedule. There'll be an equipment and inventory schedule. There'll be reps and warranties. There'll be over 1,000 questions we have to do that to in order to transact. And people are going, well, I don't have a $100 million business. That I can understand that for a $100 million business. It's the exact same process for the $13 million business we're selling right now. Their due diligence request list was 763 questions. But it's crazy. You got a mom and pop company, you got 14 trucks, you got 38 employees, and you got to answer 763 questions and defend
Yeah.
in order to transact. Most people just, and so I had a guy, this is years ago, we were talking, he gotten through selling his business and he'd gotten through all the trauma that goes with it. It's a arduous process. And he said, look, he said, I'm in better spirits now. I want to tell you, I've had two of the nastiest divorces you've ever heard about. I've been in trouble with the IRS and had over a year-long battle with the IRS. And this process of selling my company was harder than all of those combined. And I was like, man, will you say it on tape? Because it just feels like that's true.
Yeah.
Even if, you know, who's going to write you a 8-figure check or a 9-figure check?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Like, at the end of the day, right, if you want someone, I mean, because, like, you know, usually the local guy is not giving you $10-20 million, right? It's probably going to be, you know, some sort of a private equity group or some, you know, professional that has access to that type of capital. So yeah, they want to make sure that they got everything covered so they don't get screwed, right? And I think also make sure that you've got your shit together, right? I think that's important.
Yeah. The private equity guys, you know, they used to do bigger deals. We'd say, you know, $30 million deal would be small to them. And they apply a process, right? That their process works for them. They know it. One of the things they do is they employ a lot of consultants, taxes, attorney, and accounting, and all. And every one of those consultants has an insurance policy, right? So if something goes wrong, they can point at the consultant. They can get some retribution from the insurance policy. Well, now they've come down market and they're buying $5, $6, $10 million companies. They're applying the same process. Right?
Yeah.
We were involved in a nice business across town here that sold last year. Small sale for us. It was about a $7-point-something million deal, which included the real estate. And the buyer went through the exact same process they would go through on a $50 million deal. They spent $700,000 with their consultants and lawyers and accountants and to go through the process to close that's a 10% of the purchase value they spent getting the due diligence done before they were satisfied. Now, part of that is a new thing, new to us. It's not new in the world of finance, but the lenders are driving a ton of that, right? We're not going to.
They're not going to close unless they have everything that they need. Yeah. So, we're seeing that too.
You got the buyer that you got to work with, but then you have to know that behind the buyer is a lender who's forcing them to do a lot of
correct. And especially in this market, and I think too, you have to recognize too, we're in a very weird market. People want to make sure that they're covered, and especially lenders, they have to. They don't have an option.
Yeah, but the moral of the story is if you've got a business that's been around for a while, there's a buyer for it, and you need to. If you're at that stage of life where you're gonna need to sell it to a third party, you don't know who that is. It's not somebody in your family or on your management team or somebody you know. You need to align yourself with a transaction advisor sooner rather than later, where you can really work through all the nuances of these things and get this thing right. You don't want to be rushed in this process.
Yeah. When you have to rush, you're not going to get the best deal.
There's plenty of money out there. Don't let somebody fool you that there's no money for you. There's more money out there than there ever has been, but it's smart money. And so, you play the game their way.
100%. Makes sense. And what's next for you, Matt? Are you going to sell this business or?
So here's my answer. Probably not soon. But I know today who my buyer is, right? So regional accounting firms, think of a firm that has 200, 300, 400 accountants in there, and they're in 2 or 3 states around the area. There is a trend that they're bringing M&A advisory in-house so that they can
make sense
services to their clientele. I really think that we'll be a great tuck-in for a regional accounting firm at some point. I'm 55. My business partner, Brett, is 65. He's 10 years older than I am. He's got more energy than I do. So that's not an indication of him slowing down at all. But, I think that there will be a point where 4, 5, 10, who knows how many years down the line, that looks like our most likely, but best place for our employees to go. And also for the type of client that we serve, there's great resources there that, when combined, we can really make some magic. So we partner with a lot of those guys now. Wealth management firms come to us every single day and say, hey, I have a client, most of their net worth is not liquid. It's tied up in their business. That client wants to sell the business, create a liquidity event. Will you help us do that? So one of those types of firms would be the most likely buyer for our business, but it's not anywhere near on the horizon. Although, we'd be wise to build towards something that they would value. And
Makes sense.
That.
Yeah, well, you're practicing what you preach, and you're already planning. So that's great to hear.
A couple of years ago, it was funny. This was I guess 2019. I had some professional buyers, several different groups coming at us and saying, hey, we love what you do on the sell side. It's very disruptive. It's not like what everybody else is doing. Would you do that for us on the buy side? And I was like, man, I'm not, we're not ready. We're still working on our, perfecting our sell side stuff. And I just kept pushing back on that. Well, then COVID hit and I got nervous, right? I was like, man, I don't know what's going to happen to the world here. Maybe I should look at the buy side and diversify our offering a little bit. So it talked to the team and everybody thought that was a good idea. And we were kind of thinking about organically standing up a buy side division. And I was in the shower one day and it just dawned on me. I was like, well, wait a minute. I don't know any of my peers coast to coast who are in the transaction advisory business who have actually made an acquisition themselves. So before we stand up this buy side division internally and organically, why don't we look around the country and see if there's a good buy side outfit there that we could acquire and put our money where our mouth is and say, hey, we don't only tell you to do M&A work, but we do it in our own firm. And so we kind of scoured the country and ended up finding a really cool buy side shop that does a good job and fit really well culturally with us. And so we made that acquisition and
awesome.
That really well, practice what we preach and, really want to be transparent about who we are and how we get paid and what we do. And when you're super transparent, you align well with the ones that fit and you kind of shun the ones that don't.
Yeah.
And your hit rate goes up. And so, we've had a good run and we're super proud of it, but that's kind of the basic philosophy around here is, and the other thing is, and this is important to say to your listeners, in my space, the thing to do is meet a business broker, transaction advisor, investment banker, play golf or hit it off over a dinner, and they're going to want to sign you up as fast as they can. Because when they sign you up as a client, you're exclusive. You can't go anywhere. You're locked in. And the industry will sign you up not even knowing if you're a good fit, not knowing anything. They just locked you in so that nobody
will lock you up.
Right.
Yeah.
Our process is very courtship related. We go through 5 or 6 different stages of making sure there's a good fit before we ever talk about being engaged to each other to sell the business. And I get a lot of flack for that from my peers because theoretically I'm missing signing people up left and right. And we don't play the numbers game. We want the right owner, somebody who, aligns with us well, and we'll take you to the finish line. But don't get, again, another kind of one of the industry tricks is, don't just sign up with somebody without being certain that their process and your evaluation and the marketing and, everything is going to go well for you. Because once you're locked in, you can't come to me crying and say, I want to change horses. I'm not going to be able to touch you at that point because you've signed an exclusive relationship.
Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah. All good stuff, Matt. And, thanks for all sharing today. I think it was really helpful. And, I hope everyone listening take some of these bits before they go make a move. And it's all about growing, right? And I think part of growing is growing a business and then at some point exiting. But you got to really, plan for that. And I think you shared a lot of great stuff around that today. So I definitely appreciate it. And as we always wrap up here, we always, let our guests leave with a growth tip. So what would be a growth tip that you would share? I know you've dropped a lot of them today, but what would be one growth tip that you'd share
Yeah.
to any entrepreneurs listening?
I'm going to give you two actually, because I forgot to
Nice.
say earlier. So the thing I didn't say earlier is I've mentioned there's a ton of money out there looking for businesses to buy, not a ton of great businesses coming to market. So they're getting bid up and valuations are higher than ever. People should really test the market at this point. You don't want to sell your business for 5 years. Test the market. You may think this thing's worth 20 million and the market will tell you that it's worth 35. That's a game changer, right? You may think 20 and the market tells you it's worth 7. Test the market and know where you stand. So the growth tip that I want to answer your real question for is documenting non-competes and employment agreements and things like that with your employees and your management staff and your sales team. Things like that has gotten to be where most businesses aren't doing a good job at that anymore. And, a lot of these people may have started their business. I know probably half the business owners I worked with, they left somewhere and they took a customer and they started their company, right?
Yeah.
Leave you and take a client or take an account or whatever and start a business. And so one of the things that trips people up all the time in their growth stages and pulls the value back down is they haven't set up these processes with vendors and employees and customers where their documentation is really taken seriously.
Got it.
And so you want to go borrow money to grow, you got to have your documentation in order. You got to meet covenants. You want to go talk to somebody like us about selling your business, it's more valuable. You'll get cash at closing instead of deferred cash if you have these things in order. And so most business owners have gotten by with, not being great documenters. And so they don't feel the need to change now. But the world is changing. The world is online. The world is, all about data and the metrics around data. And so building out your data systems where you can cut and slice your data and show trends and things like that, and then documenting all that does help and will make you much more valuable in the long run.
Good stuff. Great advice. Definitely appreciate that, and appreciate all said. Thanks for being on the Grow Show. Where could folks, find you, Matt? I'm
assuming you'll put some stuff in the show notes, but we're at Gilbert and Pardue, so we go by GAP. GAP-advisors.com. We've got some free tools on there you can play around with, looking at your valuation and things like that. And my phone number's on there. My cell phone number's on there. You can text me if you go there and get my cell phone number, and I will respond because I just love what I do.
Great stuff.
You're welcome to put my email address in the show notes too, if that's how you guys do it. I don't really know.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll put everything in the show notes. If you have any questions for Matt, please feel free to reach out to him. And please listen to a lot of things he said today, because I think it's important and it gets missed by so many. Keep doing what you're doing and keep growing. Thanks for tuning in.
Man, you're doing a great service, Joe. Thanks.
Thank you.